I recently had lunch at a winery, a local winery, and very lovely meal and beautiful setting with trees and a most immaculate velvety green lawn. It was just the most beautiful lawn I've seen, and I was initially I was a bit jealous. I thought, oh, I wish we had lawns like that at Retford Park. And then I thought, well, actually no. Firstly, it was a monoculture. It was just one species of grass. There was no biodiversity there. And secondly, it was a very deep green. Obviously, it had been chemical fertiliser had been used on it. And then I thought, and they probably use herbicides here as well. And probably because of the chemical fertiliser, they probably use insecticides. And probably because it's all that sappy growth, they probably use fungicides. So then I thought, this lawn is actually an ugly lawn because really it's full of ugly things that really we don't want in our environment. And the water here, when it washes off, goes into our water supply. And so why would we be putting all these chemicals and dangerous elements into something to make it beautiful when we can actually make a beautiful lawn like this without using those chemicals? Hello, my name's Rick Shepherd. I'm the head gardener at Retford Park, which is a National Trust property in Bowral. I've been working at Retford Park for 10 years now, or just over 10 years. Initially it was with James Fairfax. When I first started, we had 200 hectares of property. Most of that was cattle pasture, with 10 hectares of garden, which I was responsible for. I've still got the 10 hectares, but about 6 years ago, some of that land was sold off for housing development, and now National Trust own it, and we've got 34 hectares in total with 10 hectares of garden. So Retford Park is in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales, and we are considered a cool climate area. We're about 650 metres above sea level. So we have a mild winter, or cold to mild winter, and a mild to warm summer. So this brings in a different plant palette that you might get in, say, in Sydney or on the coast. We have frost in the winter. We also have very good volcanic soils and quite a moderate rainfall, like about 1,200 millimetres a year on average. So it's a very benign sort of garden. Like it's a kind of easy place to garden because we've got good soils, we've got mild climate, a bit of frost, and good frequent rainfall. But we've also got a lot of heritage here, and that brings constraints to what we can do here. We've got the existing beautiful homestead here and a lot of outbuildings, but also the heritage trees that are here and a heritage style, which was basically an English landscape style. Not a lot of natives used, unfortunately, from my point of view, but we still managed to manage the garden in a very ecological friendly way, even though it's not natives. One of the first things I did when I came here was started a bird list. So we started recording the species of native birds, and we've got, I think, maybe up to 87 now species we've recorded. But there has been some changes over the years. Some of those no longer come here, like the finches no longer frequent, probably because of all the development that's happened with the housing around here, clearing of the land. Over 800 trees were cut down, and just change in management from pasture to housing has really had an effect on the bird life here. One of the guys that works in the garden with me here is Jim, and he's a great bird expert, and every few months he'll come up all excited. He's seen a new bird species, which is always something that we celebrate. Yep. Recently we had a rufous fantail here, and then last year there was a scissor grinder, and then we've had a dollar bird, I think it was. So there is excitement about birds coming into the garden that we haven't seen before, and I think all the practices that we've been doing here is providing habitat, not using chemicals, planting natives. I think it's all starting to come slowly into fruition, and we're celebrating that. So they're a wood duck, yeah. It's been a really good year for them because it's been so much rain, the grass is growing crazy, and they actually eat grass. Yeah, they're happy as anything. Being a heritage site here, we are limited to the plant palette. So we've got mainly North American and Northern European species here, some from other countries as well, but unfortunately not many natives. So what we try and do is where we can, we do plant natives in amongst the heritage, rhododendrons and hedges, etc., to try and improve the biodiversity here, try to attract birds to the garden. Birds are important in the garden because they're really good pollinators and they're really good at insect control, and they're just an indication that it's a healthy ecosystem. So we do other methods as well to try and improve the biodiversity. We've got some bird nesting boxes, we've got watering stations for the birds, we've got Habitat in the form of branches and sticks that we leave around to create more habitat for them. Even if we can't plant as many natives as we'd like, we try and provide the habitat in other ways. When we planted the orchard just behind where we're sitting now, a few years ago, it faces south, so it was quite wind exposed. So we did plant a bank of natives there as a windbreak and a shelter belt, and also habitat for birds, because it's really good to have birds near the orchard because they're part of your pest control system. They'll come in and control insects, etc. So quite a few natives there, and we have had lots of wrens and scrub wrens and black-faced cuckoo shrikes have been down there, so we know that it's working. The good thing about that windbreak is that we haven't had to water it. Obviously, you're planting native plants which are native to the highlands. They're adapted to these conditions, and that's something people can take on at home. You're not only providing habitat for birds, but you're reducing the amount of water you need to use on the garden, and being responsible. There's only a certain amount of water around, and it's best to use it responsibly. So we've got white fly here, see these tiny little guys? And this little beetle is actually eating them. So this is great, biological control in action. So when I first started here, there was a little bit of resistance to the sorts of ideas that I was bringing to the gardens. There was obviously existing personnel here, then they'd been used to being managed in a different way, and they were going, oh, that's not going to work, how's that going to work? And what I did is actually just took off-site all the chemicals that were here, and I think that did cause a bit of anxiety with some of the people here because they were going, how are we going to manage? But over time, people have came around and could see that the results spoke for themselves. But anytime there's change, like people find change difficult, and so that was it was tricky to start with, to try and convince people that this was going to work. But I persevered, and it's, as you can see today, it's a fantastic garden, and it's all done without chemicals and in a sustainable way. One part of the garden that does need to be watered a lot is the veggie patch. And I think it's worthwhile doing this because if you're growing your own veggies, you're getting really good quality, delicious food that you can enjoy, and that it's not chemical free and it's healthy. But also you're not having a truck ship it from North Queensland or from Western Australia, so your carbon footprint when you're eating your own vegetables is very, very small. And so to use a bit more water on that, I think is justified. And that's something that we should be encouraging, is growing your own food, even if it does mean you need to water it.